Lance Strider. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. I mean, some people have seen from time to time I do a little jingle, mainly about the two-tier policing society. And I guess I can prove a point as far as what I can do is concerned. Maybe I really am a good singer. Who said Blobby's got talent? Shut up, you. How dare you insult such a great legend. But you know what, jokes aside, when I'm having a crack at myself, do you know what I find? Very few people have got the courage to actually stand up and make insults. You know why? Because it bounces off me. It's like I'm constantly walking around Norwich and I've got my own little invisible protective field. Ironically, a bit of a safe space, you could say. But of course you didn't come here to find out about my supernatural powers. No, you're here to listen to a bit more of the political stuff. So where do we begin with this one? Well, I figured we'd start with Tommy Robinson, since everyone's pretty much talking with the case, or about it rather. And even if this is only a minor victory in many people's eyes, it is a major step forward for our justice system. Because finally, we've got a judge with a pair of balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to allow Tommy to have a trial by jury. Now, of course, the mainstream media, they don't want this, as that would then deny them the ability to get an unfair conviction. Now, I can't talk about the case itself, because obviously I would be in contempt of court. But what I can say is that this court case is going to be absolutely unprecedented in its nature. Whatever happens in this court case is going to basically dictate the entirety of free speech in the United Kingdom. Because as we all know, we have some semblance of free speech, but it's not truly free speech because Keir the traitor Starmer seems to lock up anyone who isn't on his side. And obviously Tommy Robinson needs no introduction on that shit, because I've talked about it until the cows come home. And I assure you, everything is under control. Anyway, there's no need to introduce Tommy Robinson to this. Lucy Connolly I've also talked about just as much, and they have both been persecuted on the back of free speech. But now, instead of this man, Tommy Robinson, being held under the mercy of a corrupt judge, now he will face 12 members of the public. The only hope that I have is they don't get cherry-picked from certain communities and certain left-wing groups. I think you know what I mean. I personally think that this jury must be selected by a truly independent and completely neutral adjudicator. A person who does not sway either in favour of or against Tommy Robinson, or in favour of the media, or against the media. We need some people that actually have no idea who Tommy is, have no idea of his past, and have no idea what's happened revolving around this case. That is the only way we're going to get a truly impartial, unbiased jury for Tommy Robinson, and he deserves it. I am glad that for once this petition I started has actually achieved something. But as I said, this is effectively going to be the only court case that Tommy's had a jury in. The last time they tried that, they tried to swear in a PCSO as well as part of the jury, and it looked about as balanced as a cake in one hand and a titan in another. So no matter how small this seems, no matter how small it feels like, this is a major step forward. Because at least now Tommy is actually going to get, I hope, a truly fair trial. A fair chance. A fighting chance against our establishment. I may not have any prayers for Tommy Robinson, but my heart goes out for him, and I wish him all the best in his court case on the 3rd of July. Now to the other section. So basically I wanted to put up my other video yesterday after my talk Swims and Strokes, but I've decided I'm going to do it here because I think it will reach more people this way. So let's start talking about the two-tier policing society, because it does turn out that there are a few heroic cops out there, maybe few and far between, or maybe they're keeping themselves out of the spotlight for obscurity reasons. But there was one cop who it was reported that apparently there was a knife-wielding thug. Now, I can't remember off the top of my head where this took place, as I haven't actually read up the story today. I had read into it briefly yesterday, but my memory's like a fucking sieve. I think the old brain pasta must have went through it. Anyway, this story revolves around one copper who effectively was doing his job in a rather heroic, robust manner, taking out the trash and the like. And obviously by the trash, I mean this knife-wielding thug. He absolutely wrecked him. Charged right into him, tackled him to the ground, took him in. So you think, he's done a good job, right? Taking care of business, taking out the trash, making sure that the community's safe from a person who's threatening everyone with a knife. What could go wrong, right? You forget, this is 2025, and we're living in the millennia of DEI, which of course means diversity, equality and inclusion, or didn't earn it. These people, the box tickers over in their little offices and what have you, they decided, because this knife-wielding thug took offence to being tackled to the ground, they decided they were going to kick this heroic cop out of the force on the spot. I just want that to sink in. Do your job, deal with crime, take care of a dangerous individual, look after the community, get fired. Have images of CP or child SE or violate cops or, I don't know, beat the shit out of patriots while letting T-wrist sympathisers do their thing. Hey again. And yet, those guys don't even get anything. Maybe a slap on the wrist at most. Some of them even get a pat on the back and a fucking promotion. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks? Because say it with me. It doesn't suit the narrative. And it just proves a point more than anything. That our police force are mostly guilty until proven innocent. And by that I mean they're guilty of being thugs until they prove themselves in the actual field. And then when they prove themselves in the actual field, our thugs in uniform in their offices decide to get rid of them. Just like that. I wonder what it's come down to for our thugs in uniform, our two-tier police, to decide, the box tickers if you will, to decide, oh, let's get rid of a guy who's doing his fucking job. Let's get rid of a guy who fits the description of white superior male or alpha male or whatever you want to call them. Let's take somebody who fits that description and make an example of them for the sakes of didn't earn it. Sorry, diversity, equality, inclusion. Or maybe I was right first time. It is exactly these kinds of box-ticking dickheads that are making our police a laughing stock. Just like the police officer who decided, and he was filmed doing this, so it's beyond doubt, he decided to go up to a fence where there was a Union Jack hanging on the fence. He decided to take it down. Now you could understand if it was a Muslim, because a lot of them are quite intolerant of us. Not every Muslim, let me be clear. But you could understand if it was a Muslim copper going up to the flag and taking it down. Because obviously, when you come to the Islamic extremists, the only flag they want to see is their own Islamic flag, and the only laws they want to see is Sharia law. But no, this wasn't the case. This was... Sorry? Oh yeah, it was. Hey, I'm doing a video for YouTube, by the way. No, you're right, see you later. There was the guy I shared a story with in the sauna. Let me tell you what happened. So basically, me, him and another Christian lad were in the sauna, ended up having a talk about things, started talking about drinking, and I told him that little story about me and Tormelinos having 2 cocktails, some cheap sherry and fucking chlorine water when I was 11 years old and puking up my guts all night, the day before the fucking plane home. And shared a whole load of stories, and we were mainly talking about drinking, but we were also talking about things like worms in the pool. Yeah, and I told them, well, if any worms tried to get in me, I'd give them type 2 diabetes. So yeah, there's something for you. But yeah, back onto the story at hand. I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. But hey-ho, I digress. This copper who took down the flag was a white male, not a Muslim. So that just makes him a shambolic sign of our dying country, as it were. This man who is as patriotic as a dead squirrel. The police wonder why we don't trust them. The police wonder why we hold them in such contempt. And I do accept, to play devil's advocate, it's not the police officers themselves, for the most part, that are the evil ones. It is the organisation itself. It is the puppeteers that are pulling the strings, if you will. The commissioners, the superintendents, or the super lack of intelligence, whatever you want to call them. They're the ones who we should be really going after. But it won't stop me from going after people who have been categorically being filmed doing these horrible deeds, going out of their way to make a mockery of our United Kingdom. Last time I checked, the Union Jack was one of our 2 English flags. He has no right whatsoever to take the fucking thing down. So what if a few Muslims or a few other people get offended at that shit? Speaking of other people, there's actually a story not related to politics to some degree, but it is in some others. So the LGBTQ group of people at Halo, the group, Bungie, and the Xbox accounts, basically they were changing all their profiles to have the pride flag and all that. But what really was scary is that one subreddit, the Halo subreddit in particular, they decided that anybody that was talking about another important thing that I recommend all men do, say Happy Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Well, anybody saying that on that subreddit, they got banned. Yes, the Be Kind lot, the pride bearers, are so sensitive of any other fucking event taking the spotlight. They decided to ban anyone who dared encroach upon their LGBTQ plus mentality and hive mind, and they decided that anyone saying anything about Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, they were scum that needed to be removed. But it's very important that we understand, a lot of men in work do end up ending themselves. They end up taking their own free trial of life. But for these pride-bearing wankers, that's not important to them. What's important is they spread the love and message and the tripe, if you will, of DEI wokery. And our police are just as responsible for this as well, because more often than not, when you see Pride Month coming along, you see them getting all the fucking rainbow tattoos on their face, you see them plaster up their cars with the rainbow, and they get down with the groove, when really they should be policing the streets and not our tweets. There is a reason the police are looked at with contempt, and this is just another reason why. But perhaps one of the biggest things is the fact that the police are also complicit in covering up the G-squads from the religion of peace. You know, the ones that 84% of all of these mass exploitations have been taking place from. I think you know what I mean. Mainly from Pakistan, and I think you've already got the answer. Well, there was a commissioner that was on the mainstream media where they cherry-picked some data, said about 31% of the people on there, I believe, give or take a couple percent, had actually given their ethnicities in this poll. Well, it should have been 100%, because then we would have gotten a much clearer picture of exactly who the offending parties are who decide it's perfectly okay to go and violate young kids. And I'd like to remind the mainstream media that under Section 2 of the 2006 Fraud Act, you're not allowed to falsely represent information. So by going with this narrative of 31% of the ethnicities, they are effectively omitting the details of the other people who should have their ethnicities revealed, because then they can't hide their narrative. They can't just, like, for example, if you had 100 people in a poll, they all give their answers, and then let's say 60 of them out of the 100 are of a certain ethnic group. and then instead of showing all of them, you decide to ignore that 60 or the 60 people of that minority, so that you can then go out your way to put out the 40 people that are on this poll. That is you omitting facts, you omitting information at bare minimum, which is deliciously ironic, because what do you think the BBC and the other mainstream media do? They try to get fact checkers in to try and dispute anything anyone perceived not to be following the globalist narrative has to say. So I wonder, are there going to be any fact checkers coming out for the BBC? I believe they were the ones who put this little poll out. Are they going to come out and fact check the BBC because of the fact they were only willing to put out 31% of the ethnic stroke number one, the ethnic minorities and what have you in their poll? Something tells me I don't think so. That's the thing. If it doesn't suit their narrative, they don't want to know. And I think I feel very comfortable and confident saying this. I think the BBC and this police commissioner, this person who's got about as much backbone as a jellyfish, I suspect this person didn't want all the minorities out there because it would destroy the narrative that they're trying to paint. Stroke number two. The narrative, rather, that paints a clear picture that it is not who they say it is that's committing the mass child exploitations. Because this commissioner even had the audacity to start mentioning Asians. Now, last time I checked, and I could be wrong here, in my 34 years of wisdom, maybe knock off the odd 5 or 6 just because of infancy and all that. So let's say 28 years of experience. But in my 28 years of wisdom, last time I checked, I believe Asian encompasses the Vietnamese, the Thailandese, the Chinese, Japanese, Korean, just to name a few. Are you trying to imply that those countries also have people who end up being part of the mass child exploitation? I mean, I guess it's not impossible, because obviously any person is capable of doing it, given the right motivation or the right desires. Perish the thought. But last time I checked, I don't think it was the Koreans, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Thailandese, or the Vietnamese people who are going out of their way to go after kids. No, last time I checked, I think it was mostly, well, they say British Pakistani Muslims. I would say just Pakistani Muslims, because to imply British Pakistani would imply that it is a homegrown problem. Maybe it is, for all I know. But if it's British Pakistani in the first place, I don't know if he was trying to get me or something, I don't know. But anyway, by implying British Pakistani, well, there can't be any Pakistani in Britain unless they've come over to this country in the first place. So it begs the question, are these people really British Pakistani? Or is it just Pakistani people that have come over to Britain in order to breed? But I can assure you of this much free of charge. That culture didn't grow in Britain. That culture did not start out in Britain. It was brought along by these people from their third world death cult. Thank you, Hoodlum. And I'm just speculating with this next bit, but I suspect if we took the Pakistani roots out of the United Kingdom, I am nearly certain we would see a massive drop in child exploitation. Just like that. Now, as I said, I could be wrong about this. I am speculating. But I would say it's a very real possibility, considering some of the deviancies that Islam loves to get up to. I won't go into detail about them. I think you know which ones. But basically, Islam is very intolerant of the West. They're intolerant of anyone that isn't a Muslim. And they can even be intolerant to Muslims because they don't take very kindly to apostates, if you recall. Apostasy is punishable by death, if I recall correctly. Like, that's the thing. Maybe I should have kept Hoodlum on now. Anyway, this is the thing. Islam takes a very dim view to anybody who was part of Islam and then all of a sudden decides, no, I don't like this death cult religion. I don't like the way that they treat other people. And if the Pride group think they're going to get any leniency with Islam, they've got another thing coming. I mean, they're in for a fucking rude awakening if Islam does take over the United Kingdom and then the Pride group get what they want. Let's say, for the sake of fact, the far right are defeated. Let's say the far right are defeated, they're gone, eradicated, Tommy Robinson killed, and what have you. What do you think is going to happen when there's no far right left for you to persecute? Who do you think Islam's going to go after next? They're going to go after the left wing. And they're not going to take kindly when they find out some of these people are going on about LGBTQ+ and mentioning about how gay people have rights and what have you. I don't think people are going to take very kindly in Islam. In fact, the only kindness they're going to give you is a free first-class ticket off the top of a high-storey building. This is the second back-to-back fucking day that the bus service has been completely useless. Second time I am sitting here in the fucking rain with no bus service. Yes, not a happy bunny. But enough about that. The way I look at Islam is, these people, what do they bring that's beneficial to this country? Because what you'll hear a lot is a lot of Black History Month. You'll hear a lot of Islamic History Month, or Islamic Heritage Month, or whatever it's bloody well called. You'll see Pride Month. Is there a month for veterans? Is there a month for, well, yes there is, for men's health, but a lot of them don't acknowledge it. They won't sit out there in the streets and celebrate Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, because that doesn't suit their narrative. Do you ever hear anything about White History Month as well? Of course you don't, because we don't expect to have a fucking history read back of all the good things we've done. It's called being part of the vast majority of the populace. We don't expect things to be handed to us on a plate. We've worked 2,000 plus years to build this country. And here Keir the traitor Starmer is. Keir the traitor Starmer and his nonce party, Labour Party, or again, maybe I was right first time, effectively destroying the country. Allowing in Islam to turn our country into a third world shithole. Allowing them in positions of power where they have no place to be. It's like Farage's old saying of the Danegeld. Once you pay the Danegeld, you cannot get rid of the Dane. And yet, we have our mainstream media who are trying to cover up for the Pakistani Muslims that are going out of their way to violate our women and children. But that's the thing. A lot of people are apathetic as well, as I've mentioned before. But I guarantee you, if women ever found out what Islam is all about, if they ever found out what Islam does to their women, how they think it's perfectly okay to beat their wives, and that women should basically dress up as letterboxes, oh, I guarantee you these people would wake up like that. Because there is no shot that they would want to be treated like that, inhumanely. They would never want to be treated as a doormat for their husbands. Am I wrong? Maybe some women take pleasure in it, I don't know. But what I do know is I think the vast majority of women would not take kindly to having their bodies used as a punch bag. I don't think they would want to serve a person who effectively wants to treat everyone else like second-class or third-class citizens. But this police commissioner clearly doesn't want to draw light to Islam, because light destroys the shadow. Light casts out the shadows and exposes them for what they truly are. These people in Islam have no interest in integrating with our country. They want to subjugate our country. They want to dominate our people. And there's only one of three types of people that would ever want to side with Islam. The first are those that are just completely worn down and have given up. The apathy people. The second type of people are the sympathizers. The ones that completely sympathize with the barbaric practices of Islam. And the third group of people are the people themselves who are responsible for it. And our mainstream media, two-tier police, and Keir the traitor Starmer definitely fit into all three categories, where they find it much easier to persecute old Whitey for a tweet that they send, or holding up a flag that the snowflakes that come over here, intolerant of us, they want to tell us it's not okay, fly it. Well, let me tell you something, that shitty intolerant behaviour is not washing with us. If we went over to your countries, your Islamic countries, your third world shitholes, and told you, no, you're going to start believing in the word of God, or you're going to start catering to our views, or you're going to start giving us what we want, we'd be shown the fucking door, or the guillotine, or maybe a bullet in the back of the head. But these people from their third world shitholes expect us to roll out the red carpet for them. Unfortunately, we have a spineless politician, a spineless prime minister in the form of Keir the traitor Starmer that unfortunately is willing to roll out the red carpet for Islam. And our king is just as responsible for it. He has a way to prorogue Parliament. He could do everything in his power to call for Parliament to be dissolved until such time as a new party is in power. Yet he doesn't have the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to make that hard decision. Now I know on paper, or even as I'm basically transcribing it for you, it looks like a heavy ordeal. Looks like something that is insurmountable for us. But I assure you, we've come through from worse. We have come through from the previous Charles waging blanks with the taxpayer money. We have gone through the politicians and the taxmen violating our women and children. And when they did that shit, the English men and women, or rather the English men, they did not stand by while that shit happened. The English tax revolt, the peasants' tax revolt, sorry, it's just taking time to digest in my head. But the peasants' tax revolt saw those treacherous taxmen be punished for their sins against our women. Where are the Englishmen so brave and bold? Where are the Englishmen who did legends that were told? Legends that would see our enemies vanquished by end of day, and that would make sure that Islam and other death cults would never have their way. I know Richard Inman and Paul Thorpe want to sit there and basically say, we need to do this peacefully. We need to do this by the book. We've tried doing it by the book. They've laughed at us. They've ridiculed us. They've told us that we can't have our own fucking flag flying high. A flag that is supposed to instill pride in one's nation. A flag that is supposed to represent the very heart of this country. The English flag. And they won't allow it. YouTube as well won't allow it. Whenever you try to put in the English flag, it comes up with a black flag instead, with a load of black crosses next to it. So it begs the question, where are the Englishmen so brave and bold? Because I guarantee you, that filth that calls themselves an army, the Somalian pirates, the Islamic State, the Hezbollah groups, the Hamas groups, the Free Plasticine movement, they think themselves as untouchable. They think themselves as superior. But I guarantee you, if our bold Englishmen from ye olde days came around, if they took to the streets, they'd have those cunts running 100 miles an hour, just like that. Because they wouldn't be able to stand up to real men of this country. They'd have a better chance of seeing the launch of me going to the moon. But it does draw a stark contrast, doesn't it, folks? The heroic copper who's got the balls to go after criminals with pure robustness, able to take out the trash, and yet, when he does his job, he gets fired. Yet, you could be a criminal working in the police. You could be a crooked copper. You could be covering up for the G-squads. The mass child exploitation. Nearly had my third stroke there. And nothing will happen to you. In fact, you might even get a promotion. And people wonder why we say two-tier policing, two-tier justice, two-tier media reporting, two-tier governance. When you put it all together, when you put two and two together, it is very fucking clear why we say that we're living in a two-tier policing society, or a two-tier justice society, with two-tier media and a traitorous Prime Minister who has decided to dedicate himself to do everything in his power to protect the Muslim community rather than the whole of the English people. Yeah, I'm using the word English. I know there's somebody in the comments who's going to be saying you're using the right name. Well, frankly, I'm going to say British or English, hither or whether. The way I say it, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And anybody who doesn't like the way I sometimes make those mistakes, so be it. Am I now going to sit here and allow people to fucking crucify me just because I use the wrong word? No, of course not. But you can't expect somebody to be 100% perfect, because at that point, they become a robot. Thank you, Budler. It's not raining anymore. You don't need to put yourself over my head. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that these police need to start choosing who they really serve. They need to make their choice. Who do you serve? Your people or your government? Ask the police forces. Ask the individual officers. Ask them. Who do you serve? Your people or your government? And if the answer with the latter or with silence, you will know which side they've picked. They will be picking the wrong side of history. And the cold, bitter truth is, we are not going to get a political result before a revolution takes place, quite frankly. And when that revolution takes place, I will be there to remind the people whose side the police are on. And let me be clear, I don't want it to go to civil war. I don't want a violent revolution. But the truth is, we're heading in that direction. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Okay, it's raining again, fuck it. But it is a matter of when, not if. These people need to realise, if they're not on the people's side, they are against the people. And remember what happened to the people in the peasants' tax revolt. The people didn't take kindly to them. Those people who tried to our women and children, they were killed. Just like Charles I was killed. He was beheaded when the time came and he was charged for his crimes of going against the people. The time has come to make a decision. Two-tier policing society. Do you grow a pair of balls and side with the people, or do you continue to serve your government? Do you decide who is more important to you? That is the people, or do you decide that it's more important to protect Keir the traitor Starmer, who doesn't give a shit about you, who doesn't give a shit about his own people, who doesn't give a shit what happens to this country, as long as he gets paid and he gets power. That's what Keir the traitor Starmer represents. The bottom line is, the police have been for far too long policing politically and with malicious bias towards the English people. And if you think for 1 second we're going to forgive and forget this shit, you've got another thing coming. We do not forgive, we do not forget. The Christians will rule this country. The people of the United Kingdom will rule this country because we give you the power. We've given you the power, and just as quickly as we've given it to you, we can just as quickly take it back. If you're not going to do your job, we're going to do it for you. And then you really will wish you had sided with us. You will really wish that you hadn't fucked with the wrong people. It is only when it's too late, though, that I suspect you'll realise what you've done. You covering up for the Pakistani Muslims. Covering up for those who are responsible for the mass child exploitation. You will be responsible for the two-tier policing in this country. You are responsible for the persecution of the indigenous English people. They will remember all your crimes, and you will stand in your own little iteration of the dock, and you will be found wanting when the gavel finally comes down.